Sister Marion.
Sister Marion?
I said, her Sister Marion. I said, no, you're talking about a band singer. If you're talking about a band singer, I have the best. I called my friend Alfred Levy. I said, where's Doris? Bring her to the studio, and the rest is history.
I think Doris Day deserves a lot more credit than she's ever received. It's partly the result of typecasting. In her instance, twice, because she was a very fine singer, she came out of band singing. She became a star of movie musicals, which is a very limited venue for any kind of talent. And then once she got over to Universal and made a picture with Rock Hudson, she then became typecast as, you know, the feisty businesswoman with a soft streak who was a lover and the kindness underneath the hardness sort of thing. But if you see a picture like Love Me or Leave Me, which she made with Cagney in 1955, she did sing in that, but it's also a well-realized characterization of the woman she's playing. Doris was a very, very fine actress.
Well, we got a call from the music department head that Alfred Hitchcock wanted us to write a song for The Man Who Knew Too Much. So we
Doris Day and
Doris
Jimmy
Day,
Stewart?
Jimmy Stewart.
Right.
And we were also with MCA, the Asian. It's the only time an Asian ever got us a job, because they said, if you want Jimmy Stewart, you have to take Livingstone and Evans. So we
Such
met,
a package.
yes,
Such
a package. So we met Hitchcock in the Paramount Music Department. And he said, Doris Day is a singer, so they think she should have a song. He said, I don't want a song, which makes you feel pretty good. You know?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Self-confidence.
Lifeboat, for instance, was very famous. The scorer, David Raxon, wanted music because there was nothing there but a boat bobbing. And finally, Hitchcock said, where's the orchestra? And Dave said, where's the camera? Great line.
Well, that is the most gorgeous
Yeah.
put down I've heard in years.
Yes. Anyway, back to Hitchcock.
That's beautiful.
You know, I don't know what I wanted, but I wrote this, a story point, so the song belongs in the story, and that way it'll work. He said, I don't know what I want. I don't know what kind of a song I want. He said, Jimmy Stewart is a foreign diplomat, so it has some foreign words in it, and it was sung to a little boy.
Little boy, right.
Yeah. It would be marvelous. So we said, well, we'll try. We walked out, and Ray said, we've got that song. And I said, we do. Because I had seen the Barefoot Contessa about 2 weeks before, and in the Barefoot Contessa, at the end, the Italian actor, I forget his name now.
Rossano Brazzi.
Rossano Brazzi and Ava Gardner. He takes her to his ancestral home, and carved in the stone is Che Será Será.
Oh.
It was spelled C-H-E, the Italian spelling. And I wrote that down in the dark, instead of making that sound. We just wrote it. And it described, it had the foreign words, it was sung to a little boy.
Let's hear some of it again.
Okay. When I was just a little boy, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be happy? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. And so forth. It went on and on because the scene was very long, about 6 choruses.
And does it ever figure dramatically in
Yeah,
that picture?
it does. And also, Que Sera Sera has become a part of the language, too.
Absolutely.
There's
It
people
has.
say
Well,
that
tell
all.
them what Hitchcock said then when you played it.
So then we waited for 2 weeks. We had it all written. He walked in and said, we've been working very hard, Mr. Hitchcock, and this is the song we wrote. And I sat down and I sang Que Sera Sera. And he said, gentlemen, he said, I told you I didn't know what kind of a song I wanted. He said, that's the kind of a song I want. And he walked out. We didn't see him again for
Never
years.
saw him
Yeah.
again.
And that was it.
The strange Alfred Hitchcock.
Yes. Now, the Doris Day story is funny because she
Let's hear
thought it was a children's song, and she didn't want to record it. So she recorded another song in the picture, a ballad that she liked. It was not very important in the story. And the studio insisted she record Que Sera. And she went into the studio and recorded one take. She said, that's the last time you're going to hear that song. A friend of mine was there. Now, that's no reflection on her. We've all made those mistakes. She didn't have any idea it would be a hit.
Well, how did
But
they get the dramatic scene? And by very careful...
Oh, no, this was the Capitol recording. I mean, Columbia
yeah,
recording.
this was
after.
commercial radio.
Sorry.
And that's what makes the song a hit.
Que Será, Será. You know, for me, that has always been one of Doris Day's best numbers, anytime, anywhere. And to think she actually was reluctant to do it. wonders never cease. But then I suppose, folks, that's show business. Our theme this evening is 50s chic, and our two pictures on this occasion well illustrate the styles and fashions and urban sophistication of their time. But we wanted to learn more about that period than our movies could provide, and so we invited Edward Maeder, an expert in costumes in the movies, to join us here in our studio. Mr. Maeder is currently the director of the Batashu Museum, located here in Toronto. Welcome to Saturday Night at the Movies, Edward Maeder.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
We've talked before, haven't we?
Yes, when I did my Hollywood and History Costume Design and Film exhibition in Los Angeles.
Yes, you were there some 14, 17 years or something like that?
15.
15 years.
Yes.
Now, Edward, would you define a basic here? Costume design, when I use those two words, what does it mean? What does it embrace?
Costume design in film is like costume design in the theater. And it's an art that enhances the action and the words of any kind of given performance. Sometimes it's a color, sometimes it's a shape, but what it does is it helps the audience understand what's going on. Sometimes it might be the inclusion of a hat. In Pillow Talk, which we've just been discussing, she wears elbow-length gloves. I think that's terribly charming, but when she goes to see Rock Hudson at the end, she takes off both her hat and her gloves. So here's this formality being removed. So it's a form of subtle communication that lets the audience in on what's going on in a way that they probably don't even consciously realize.
Was there a lot of that in that picture?
A lot.
A lot of that kind of communication all through,
Yes.
all through costume. Another whole language being conveyed on the screen then
Yes,
as we watch the movie.
We in the field usually refer to costume as the silent language because it communicates to people without any words at all who we are, what we're about, and what we're doing. My professor in London once said, "We think our clothes cover us when in fact they reveal our true personalities as silently we inspect one another."
Ah. Our theme tonight is 50s chic, and I'm wondering what that term means to you. 50s chic.
Well, the 50s was the culmination of a long period of design development, and perhaps there's no other film that really captures that in 1959 like Pillow Talk. She wears 26 different outfits in this film.
26?
Yes.
How have you learned about Pillow Talk?
Well, I watched it 3 times.
Uh-oh.
And then I sat down and did an analysis, which was fascinating for me because Jean-Louis' work is all about texture. Everything from a swan's down bolero jacket to wool and suede and 4 or 5 different types of silk. And it's all about color, and he uses color to show the different moods that Doris Day is going through in her relationship with Rock Hudson in the movie.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, he introduces red at one point, and then the colors heat up. The very first scene, for example, she's wearing a little powder blue negligee with little puff sleeves, and it's this little innocent girl from the Midwest, from Ohio, really, which was what Doris Day was. And then she goes to the height of sophistication in the red velvet, the dark brown red velvet that she wears when they go out singing together.
But in terms of 50s chic, what that term means to you, you went immediately to Pillow Talk, and I'm just wondering if there's anything even beyond Pillow Talk that you'd like to comment
Well,
on that.
50s chic, I think, was embodied in the work that Jean-Louis did in this film,
Oh.
because you see all of these different textures. You see heavy satins. You see different kinds of fur, marabou, feathers, everything. And this is really what 50s was about. It was elegant. It was before the rather armored-looking period of the 60s, where womanhood sort of disappeared under a kind of courage armor of shapelessness. And when it came to shape, there were very few that could compete with Doris Day. God, she had a fabulous figure.
Well, in fashions, fabric, style, and human attitudes, what differentiated the 50s from other decades? You mentioned 60s. What about the 40s?
Well, The 50s was a period of great optimism, and the fashion designs, it was a time when America really came out of the Second World War, and fashion was very, very important. The 40s was a tailored look, Adrian, Irene, and of course the films were enormously influential in the 40s. In England, for example, in the early 40s, all of the designs that were in fashion, or I shouldn't say all, but most of the designs that were in fashion journals were publicity stills from the studios. They were sent by the tens of thousands to England because they didn't have, in the middle of the war, the possibility of doing fashion shots.
My golly, I didn't realize that.
It's a completely different era. It's a period of, as I mentioned, great optimism and great chic and verve and an innocence, still a kind of innocence before the 60s with the war in Vietnam and all of this kind of growing public awareness.
Mind you, we just came out of a war in the 50s, in the 40s, didn't we?
Yes.
So this is a period, an interregnum period, really, isn't it?
Yes, and it was a time of great, great development of quote-unquote family ideals, and you had the Donna Reed show on television, and you had these kind of things that people thought that this was who they were, even if they weren't.
But you see Pillow Talk somehow embracing so much of this, don't you?
Well, I see the world through the eyes of costume, and to see Pillow Talk and to analyze it and look at the textures that he used, the different styles. In one scene, she has a beautiful tweed coat with an elaborate fur collar. The fur collar is seen for 3 seconds.
Is what?
Seen for only 3 seconds.
Oh, my God. My God.
And from a distance.
Yeah. You mentioned texture a great deal. You see Jean-Louis working, almost suggesting it's an age of texture. Well, you talk about texture.
Yes.
Is it, what really is it? It's what you can touch?
Well, the textures, the different kinds of materials that make something interesting. For example, the suit at the very end, she wears a black velvet suit that's trimmed with satin. This is extremely sophisticated, and it's based on a man's formal white tie. She has a small bow tie and a white shirt, and it's almost like a formal tuxedo, but it's turned into a woman's garment.
Do you know much about Jean-Louis himself?
Well, as a matter of fact, I do. He worked with Hattie Carnegie and Norman Norell in New York in the 1930s and early 40s, and in 45 moved to Hollywood. And one of his most interesting connections was that he helped a young man called Francois Lesage from Paris, whose godmother was Elsa Schiaparelli, come to Los Angeles and began an embroidery business, which wasn't successful there, but went back and is the most successful embroidery house in Paris, the House of Lesage.
My gosh. Interesting, interesting. Have you ever met him?
Francois Lesage?
No.
Oh, Jean-Louis?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I had lunch with him in Santa Barbara about 5 years ago.
Oh, gosh. So he's still around then?
Yes, well, he's now, of course, married to Loretta Young.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
he lost his wife about 3 years ago.
Who was his wife? Oh, I thought maybe another star like...
No.
Not another Loretta.
No, but they were married for many, many, many
I
years.
see.
And she passed away, and very recently, I think within the last year,
good.
he married Loretta Young.
I'd like you to stick around and pop back a little bit later after Pillow Talk for some other questions that we have for you. Would you do that?
Absolutely.
Great, great. And now we go to our second Doris Day movie of the evening, Teacher's Pet, co-starring Clark Gable and Gig Young and scripted by the sensitive and very witty team of Faye and Michael Kanan. In fact, you'll be meeting Faye Kanan right after the movie. Teacher's Pet was made in 1958, produced by William Perlberg and directed by George Seaton, who incidentally won Academy Awards for writing the screenplays of Miracle on 34th Street and The Country Girl. Here now, a thoroughly delightful romantic comedy with some shrewd comments about journalism and education. Teacher's Pet.